After getting the front panel off of the 4010S, front panel comes off relatively easily. 4 or 6 screws, lifts right off. That's not a problem. What was done here, a couple of points. First of all, the brake or the tape hub brake pads had fallen off. There's one around the supply hub, and there's one around the take-up hub. There's a solenoid that activates a metal band and there's a felt pad underneath here that actually does the braking function. These pads had fallen off. The adhesive had failed, and these pads were laying down inside the machine. Little contact cement, and those once again were in good shape. Over time, a lot of these machines, the lubrication fails. One of the failure points was the bearing here on this tension arm. That was completely frozen up. That was easily relubricated with some penetrating oil. The biggest issue with this machine was when I got it, you could not push the pinch roller to the capstan. This entire mechanism had frozen up. As you can see, there's a solenoid here that activates the pinch roller, and there's one main bearing right here, and the lubrication here had failed. Also, this is one of the tie-down points for the capstan, flywheel, and the associated bearing. So that assembly had to be taken apart. The first thing that had to be done is the head block had to be removed. That's relatively straightforward. There's 3 large captive bolts that hold down the flywheel and flywheel bearing. Then this point and this point had to be relubricated, and then once again that freed that up, and that again worked. And as long as I had that assembly taken apart, I replaced the drive belt. There's only one drive belt in this machine. Well, there's 2 actually, one for the tape counter, but in the main machine there's only one drive belt, which goes from the capstan motor to the capstan. The take-up and supply reels have their own individual motors, so there's no belts associated with that. So replacing that belt on a Teac A4010 is a little bit of a challenge, because you have to actually take a good majority of the mechanics apart to get at the flywheel and the flywheel pulley. But it can be done. You just have to, a little patience. And that finally was freed up with some new lubrication. And that pretty much was all that was required mechanically. That switch was working fine. That bearing was fine. That was pretty much it for mechanically for this machine. Now, with all the mechanical points lubricated and freed up relatively well, the mechanics work quite well. These older machines were built quite well. Fast forward. Of course, we still have the top cover off right now. Stop. Play forward. Play reverse. Rewind. And play. So mechanically, this machine is in pretty good shape right now. Now we'll move on to the electronics and the recording and finalize it, finish this guy up. The Teac A4010S cleaned up really well. I now have the front panel back on. Of course, as I explained in the other video, the left tension arm now works fine, as you can see. The capstan and pinch roller are fine. Lights in the meters are working. Now using our trusty workhorse Sherwood receiver, we can now listen to the output of the Teac recorder, and we do have an issue. The left channel is extremely noisy, and we'll turn up the output. Tape is the source, and I'm hoping you can hear that in the audio. And it's your typical germanium PNP transistor waterfall. It's not enough noise to register on the VU meter. If you go into the source, it goes away. But in tape, there's quite a hiss. And it's only in the left channel too. It's not on the right channel is quiet. It's only on the left channel. So we have to investigate that. Okay, I'm still exploring my low-level noise in the left playback amplifier. I wrongly assumed that the PNP was the offending device. It was not. Surprisingly, that PNP transistor cross-referenced easily to a 2N3906 standard popcorn transistor. So that was... But that did not cure the noise problem. So we have... let me turn that back up now. You can still hear hear that noise. It's not enough noise to register on the VU meters on playback, but it's only evident on high gain, and it's only in the left channel. But it's annoying, so I'm going to get rid of that noise. But disconnecting the tape head connector from the input, the noise goes up considerably. I use the one light here to shine through the PC board so I can see what's going on with the trace on the other side. Works pretty good. The PC board's relatively thin, so you can actually see the traces on the other side.
This is the schematic of the tape preamplifier for the Teac A4010 tape deck. Basically just a 3-transistor amplifier, very high gain. There are 4 components here that are marked with red dots, 3 electrolytic capacitors, and the front end NPN transistor. The biggest problem I had, or the noise generator in this recorder, was in that that first NPN transistor, Q105, which is a 2SC732, and that was a rather interesting effect. With the tape head jack, shows on the lower left there from head, when that was disconnected, the noise went up to almost full scale VU in the left amplifier. And that transistor Q105, it was interesting. That transistor was even microphonic. You could take a small tuning tool or a small poker and scratch on that transistor, and it was actually microphonic. You could make it generate additional noise. Well, that was a culprit, that Q105. I replaced that device with an MPS 6530, and that took care of the noise. Also, the 3 electrolytic capacitors you note, also marked in red, were replaced because the gain was very low. And over time, those capacitors do decide to fail. That transistor was the culprit in our massive noise in the one channel of the recorder.
And now with our sine wave signal generator at 1354 hertz, 1.3 kilohertz, we can now check the record and playback levels. Just a Y cable on the line in from the signal generator, and the line out going to our trusty receiver. And right now, let's see, we can go over to source, and here we're listening to the source input, and go to tape. Now that's the tape output. So if we go between the source and tape, and the balance is pretty good. At this point, this guy is in really good condition. So we'll show you a couple items here. First of all, we'll go into source being the tape. And we're going into our... It took my hand. No one else could understand. Taking the line output and going into a Sherwood receiver. Like nobody else can. Of course, the fidelity on this camcorder is not the best, but it shows that we're playing back a previous recording. Take me down and love me all night long. Hold me close and make me strong. Take me down.